My friend John Lyons and I came to know each other when we worked in Jessamine County Schools for 10 years. I was on the west side, he was on the east side. So we were frenemies, or whatever you call it when you have two high schools in a district. And then I moved to central office and then also became the assistant principal at the Jessamine Career and Technology Center. So for 7 years, I was assistant principal to Dexter Knight there. And John was assistant principal at East Jessamine. And I admired greatly what he did there. And he won't say all this in his story, so I'll just give the brief synopsis, is that I watched him be a fabulous assistant principal at East Jessamine in his role for a decade or more. I don't know the exact number of years. I watched him support his leader, Janet Granata, in fabulous fashion. Like, he would go to the mat for Miss Janet anytime he needed to. But I also watched him figure out how to carve out his niche for what he did as an assistant principal that nobody else at East Jessamine can do. And there were several of those things, but the one that stands out to me is John is a mathematical, like a genius. And he's like Russell Crowe in Beautiful Mind. Sometimes I can't even follow him sometime. But Russell Crowe is like an actor for you young folks, and Beautiful Mind's like a movie from probably it may have even been in the last century. But anyway. He was fabulous when it came to scheduling. Like, he could figure out numbers of kids, how to make a master schedule, how to manipulate that to make it the best for students, teachers, administrators, how to get as many East Jessamine kids as possible to be able to take advantage of the Jessamine Career and Technology Center offerings. That's the place where I worked. How to fill up those classes and get those East Jessamine students there. And he just became known as a schedule guru. So Dexter and I would call him every spring and be like, hey, help us work through this. So I say all that to say that you got to be able to find your niche while still supporting the things you do super well that nobody else can do, while supporting your principal at the same time. The story goes on that when it came time to choose a principal at East, when Janet left, John didn't get the call, and he and I talked through that. He ended up becoming the principal at Frankfort High, where he took a school that was by rankings and test scores, one of the lower performing schools in the state of Kentucky. And in about 3 or 4 years, moved them to the top echelon of Kentucky high schools. He went on to work in the governor's, well, I don't know if it's specifically the governor's office, he can tell you his title, but worked for the governor in workforce development in Kentucky. But now he's returned to become an ERL, Education Recovery Leader in Kentucky. And he's back in the schools in Jefferson County Public Schools at Frost and Stewart Academies. And he's going to do a fabulous job helping move them forward. So all that to bring you my friend, John Lyons.
I'm going to have to get a recording of this afterwards. I don't think I've ever heard Bart say, nice things about me before, especially several of them in a row. So I'm going to need an archive of those later to hold against him. But no, to thank you all for having me here today and giving me a few minutes just to talk about the role that you guys are in, that I was in for quite a while. And like Bart said, I worked with Janet Granata, who was one of the best leaders I've ever had the privilege of working with and for. And from the very beginning, I say I was very lucky in that it was very much a working with situation. She believed in a shared leadership model and wanted her APs, to really buy in and own what we were doing. We had an administrative team that actually stayed together for 9 years. All 4 of us stayed together before splitting apart and getting schools of our own. And a couple things that were really great about that stay, and things that I learned in the position that you all are in now, was, first, at least when I came onto the job, the first thing that you're on is what, you're the guy in charge of discipline. You're in charge of buses. You're in charge of following up on targets. You're in charge of make sure everybody's on hall duty, those managerial type tasks. And those are great. And you can dive into those, and you can be buried in those for 8 hours a day, every day, and never, ever come up for air. But one of the things that Janet really stressed to us was growing as instructional leaders and finding your area within that building where you can really contribute as more than just a building manager. And trying to leaning on your strengths, leaning on the things you do well, that that you can really do that can help push things forward. And like, Bart says, one of the things that I began doing was, taking over the master schedule, trying to find inefficiencies in that, to where we could, move teachers around, get kids in places where we could really, that's was really going to move the needle for us. Things that I would look for when we would come back and we would, do our, review about what our school was looking like. I remember early on, we had a low graduation percentage, high dropout percentage, and, working to develop a program that would try to catch some of those kids that had fallen behind their cohorts, some credit recovery type of things, some things that, an alternative school within our school, because the alternative school really didn't have enough spaces to meet the needs of our kids. Looking for different ways that I could be an instructional leader, different ways that I would be ready for that next step. But the biggest thing that I always wanted to be sure that I was doing was supporting my principal and superintendent, in that I was a person that was in the front lines of that teachers were going to be interacting with me more often than her. They were going to be interacting with me when I come in their class, as far as working with a kid, when I'm following up, that I'm going to be the one in the halls. I'm going to be the one that we're seeing and talking to. And I had to be sure that I was conveying the same culture that she wanted to convey, which is we're going to do what's right for kids every day. We're going to come in and be positive every day. And whatever the program was that we were rolling out, I was going to give that positive message to the teachers. Because so many times the teacher's going to come to you when they're disgruntled, when they're frustrated, especially when they're at the end of the rope with that kid, and you all know who that kid is in their class. That they're just, that this is all we can do, and they don't know what to do, and Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so just doesn't have my back, and you've got to come in there. It's going to be really easy to fall into that trap of hearing them and then not supporting your principal. You've got to be sure that you're coming back, reinforcing what it is that we're trying to do as a building. Pump them up, let them know that they're heard, but also let them know that you're still supporting your principal, and that we're going to get through this together. What can I do to support you? How can I make you successful? Tell me, what things can I give you? Some of those things you're not going to be able to do. That they're going to want to go throw the kid under the school outside. Not just a day of ISS. They want to get rid of them forever. No, we can't do that. But how can I help support you? Can I be in this class where he's giving you trouble for the next few days, just to help give you some extra support, another eyes on? Can I make a phone call home, for you to help you out there? Give you just let mom know that we've got a couple folks here that are trying to support their child. So some things like that, where when you're ready for that next step, that you're able to lead from above. Because realize, when you take that next step into the big chair, a lot of those managerial tasks that you're doing now, that's not going to be your focus any longer. So you can't have the first day, as being the head principal, be the first day that you've ever looked at how to be an instructional leader. How are you, how are you going to look at supporting teachers to be better instructors? How are you going to look at how we're going to review data? How are we going to use this data? How are we going to change instructional practices? Those are the things that you need to be looking at, ways that you can get yourself into. Even if your principal isn't saying this is your role right now, that would be the number one thing that I would suggest to you, is looking at how you can make that part of your role. How can you say, hey, utilize me in this area as well? I know that I've already got this and this on my plate, but I would love to be able to support the English department, because that's what I was as a teacher. I was a really good writing instructor. I would love to be able to go in there and support them, be in classes with them, being able to help them. One of the things that I like to do, especially when you're about at that time of the year right now, where the beginning of the year is worn off, everybody's beginning to forget about the things that we talked about in August that we were going to do as a school, and you're just down, you're into the grind again, is getting in those classrooms that where your hot spots are, as far as supporting those management decisions, being there proactively, and be in those classrooms looking as an instructional leader as well. I can be in a classroom that I know that 3 out of the last 5 days, third period of Mrs. Smith's class, Jeff and Michael have been losing their minds in there, and I've had to be called down. Why not just start my day in there? Start the period in there. Be in that classroom. Be in there for support. But you know what? Nothing's happened yet. I can support her as an instructional leader as well. I can give her some feedback on what's going on instructionally in her class, and I can also. My desk just happens to be right behind Jeff and Mike, where they've been acting like fools for the last few days. but I can give her feedback. I can begin to earn her trust as an instructional leader, and then show my principal this is an additional capacity that I have. The other thing is things that you don't know about, begin to ask questions. Talk to folks who are experts in those areas. Talk to folks that really do know those things, and you don't have to know everything. Actually, I was a math teacher, and so I tell people I'm still a recovering 8th grade math teacher. But so when we come up, how am I going to support? We had the Kentucky State Teacher of the Year that was teaching English. We had another 2 or 3 time Teacher of the Year in the district that was teaching English in our building. How do I support teachers like that? Coming from a math background, I went to them. I asked them, how do you want to get better, and how can I help support you? How can you help the teacher next door to you who's really not as good as you? How can I help you be able to transfer some of your knowledge, some of your expertise over there, and just be upfront about it? Let's say, look, if it was, up to me to be able to raise our English course through my instruction, we'd be a struggling school. I'm leaning on you as an expert. Help me get better. Help me, be able to move these folks forward. And that was really big for me as well, as far as, once I was able to start having those conversations as an AP, when I became a principal, being able to have those same conversations with my staff, of being able to share leadership and share ownership of what we were doing. Like I just feel rambled on there for a good 15 minutes. Bart, what are some other things that you were hoping we might be able to share, or even you guys out here, if it's my role as an AP when I was a principal, or even now as an ERL in a struggling school?
I'll say this, and I've got to step away. We have Dr. Lou Young in the back this morning at GREC and UK Next Gen. If you don't know about UK Next Gen, that's a great, that's GEN. That's a great program to pursue for your school district. Some of your school districts may be in that. But I'm going to go back and check in with her. She's a great mentor for me. So I'll say this, and I'll get off, and y'all can talk as long as you want. I know we got an exciting program for you. So John, you hit a lot of the things that I really, really wanted you to hit. I called John on the road up this morning and said, hey, you're going to be on in an hour. Get ready. Imagine what he could, if he could have had 2 days, there's no telling what he could have brought you, but he brought you lots of nuggets right there that were phenomenal. I think you said it. The word assistant comes before the word principal for you right now. I've been a head coach for 23 teams. 26 if you count the soccer that I did as a head coach. I've been a head coach for 26 teams, 26 seasons, and I've had assistant coaches, and I've had some phenomenal ones, and I've had some ones along the way that I'm not sure they completely had my back. They could disagree with me in the office. They could say, you know what, when I get to lead my own team, I'm probably not going to do it that way, and that's all fine and dandy. But when they go out in the hall, when they talk to a parent out in the parking lot, when you do that, what John hit on was great, because that teacher is going to try to divide you and your administrative team because they need you to support them. But you got to figure out a way to support them without saying that it's so easy to say, like, yeah, I know, that's just the way she does it. That's just the way they lead. I understand. And all you got to do is just say a couple of words like that to lose the trust within your administrative team. And once you lose it, it's really hard to get it back. I'm not saying that you defend unethical or illegal behavior. Please don't get me wrong. I listened to a podcast yesterday that I'm going to talk about here in a minute from Ryan Hawk. And he had a guy named Ryan Holiday on there that wrote a book, Calling You to Courage. You have to be courageous. But I'm just talking about philosophies and ways of operating. You're going to get to be a coach at some point. If you want to be a coach at some point, you're going to get to be one. And that's one thing, John. In the end, you ended up not being the principal at the school that you were assistant principal for over a decade. You ended up at a different school. Looking back on that and reflecting on it, the good and bad of that in the end for you. Talk to us about that.
Especially when it happened, there were not a whole lot of kind thoughts in my mind that were going on. I felt like I'd paid my dues. I'd been there, and it wasn't just me. It was, like I say, that whole team that had been together. None of us got that next position. But I learned so much over that time that I still felt like that it was time well spent. I mean, I really was able to grow. If I'd have been in a different situation where I was stagnant in that position and didn't continue to grow as a professional every year, I think I would have looked at it completely different. The same thing, like I said, I'm still very close with the other AP that was in my position. He's a current principal at Pierce High School right now. When we talked about those lessons learned, and we talked about how it made us stronger leaders in the position that we're in now. And I'll kind of reiterate what Bart was saying about once you lose trust. That was, once I became principal, the AP that I inherited there, like that could have been the fortunes of the school that I took over could be completely different if he didn't buy in and was supportive of what I was doing. And we would have some of those days when we closed the doors and I would come up with whatever we were gonna do next. He used to say, make fun of me that when I would come in and start a conversation with, I was on a run last night and I was thinking. He's like, God, I hate when you run or mow the yard. He said, because that's when you come up with all the new things that we're going to do. And there's a lot of times, he'd shut the door. He's like, no, John, that's garbage. There's no way we can do that. There's, and I wanted him to tell me that, there was garbage. I need to pump the brakes on those things. But sometimes he would tell me that. I was like, no, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to go out. We're going to go out here. We're going to do it. He didn't think it was going to work, but when we shut the doors, he was the biggest cheerleader out there. And he was the one that was driving and pushing and did a great job of kind of, I called it, corralling those lost sheep, the ones that were wanting to stray away from what we were doing. Because, when we took over school, it was in the bottom 20 schools in the state. And, as I basically said, if we keep doing the things that you've been doing, you're going to stay one of the bottom 20 schools. So we changed a lot of things. And it would have been really easy for people to be pushed out of their comfort zone and not want to buy in and jump in on what was going on. And especially if my AP was saying, yeah, I'm with you, I wish we would go back to doing it this way as well. But that's huge. Having that trust, knowing that you got somebody that is going to be honest with you when the door's shut, but completely have your back when the doors are open.
Thank you so much. I think if you can look in the chat, I put two things. I put a title of a podcast called the Learning Leader Podcast. Ryan Hawk is the moderator of that, and that's his podcast. He had Jay Williams, former college player of the year in basketball at Duke, way back around the turn of the century, who's now a very successful businessman and works as a commentator on ESPN. I think it's ESPN, ABC, college basketball. You'll see Jay Williams. Jay's professional career did not go like he wished. He was the #1 draft pick, but he had a motorcycle accident a year or so into his professional career and never really played again. I think he came back and played, but never achieved the success on the court that he thought he might get. And he just talks a lot about life lessons. But his very last thing, his last comment in the podcast and last few minutes was about career advice. And I'm going to give this career advice to you this morning as I step away. And I wrote it in here exactly the way it says. Appreciate your position while planning your promotion. Appreciate your position while planning your promotion. Be excellent at your current role while also thinking about what could be next. If you get stuck in that 8 hours a day that John mentioned at the beginning of providing life support to your school, you can eventually get pigeonholed as the person that does discipline, lunchroom duty, bus duty, managerial duty, works with the custodians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that have to be done? Absolutely. Does the school fall apart if it doesn't get done? Absolutely. But you have to make sure you fight to carve your niche, and hopefully you have an instructional leader above you as a principal that will give you those opportunities. So that you can be thinking about what's next. Anytime you can lead and people can see you lead, that's important. I'm going to segue and then I'm going to go. So this, can you see that box of cards right there? I know when I do virtual screen, it's like hard. Can everyone see that? That's called We Connect cards. It's a small box. We sent out emails to the 350 principals in GREC 2 weeks ago on a Friday. 60 of them responded to this offer of a free gift from Dan Costello, who's on the call this morning. 60 of them responded and said, yeah, I'd love to have that box of cards for my school. They're really simple. They are these small cards and they ask questions. This one says, what do you have on your refrigerator door? This one says, what are you grateful for? And basically, you just use the cards to start connection conversations with a group of people. We use them a lot in trainings at GREC. So I say all that to say that if you're not sure if your principal asked for a set or not, but if you want a set, this might be a way for you to say to your principal, hey, at the next faculty meeting, can I have 5 minutes to do if it's a bell ringer, a connection activity, and let them see you leading the faculty in something like that. It's really simple. It's an easy way to step in. We're talking a lot about adult self-care right now for our educators. Sherlin's going to talk to you about that this morning. Something like this could be big. So if you want, when you get off the call, you feel free to ask your principal. And do you remember the email, or did you say yes to the WeConnect cards from GREC? If they say, I have no idea what you're talking about, they get 1,000 emails a day. Say, hey, I'm gonna pursue that and get us a box of those. They're free. And Kelly and Dan can put in the chat how you might want to ask for that here. So I think you have to fill out a little Google survey and put your name and stuff in, and we'll send them to your school for free. And we want you to use them to connect with your team. So a lot of things we tied together. John, thanks so much for jumping on. So excited for this meeting. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. So great start to our meeting today. So, a couple of things that John said that really resonating with me as well is, I was in the same boat as he was when I was in an assistant principal position, and then I was not hired as the principal when that came open. And just like he said, at the time, that was really devastating to me because I had worked so hard in that building. And, you have to take all of those, experiences to just make you better. And so it caused me not to just say, okay, hey, maybe that's not for me, but then, to really do a lot of reflection and see, okay, what do I want to do? And how can I make that happen? And so, you always have to be thinking about moving forward and not just getting stuck. Because in the assistant principal position, you can really get in that. You can go down that road of, I've talked to a lot of assistant principals and they're like, all I do is behavior and all I do is work on attendance. And we just try to brainstorm, what are some other ways that you can let your leadership shine? And so you always have to kind of be thinking outside of the box, how you can do that. And so we appreciate Bart jumping on and getting us started and having John with us. And so I think Dan probably dropped in the chat. I think I saw that come about. So if you're interested in the WeConnect cards and you find out that your school does not have any, just let us know. You can email Dan, or if you email me, then I can get that to him, that information to him as well. So, all right. Next up, we have, and Bart mentioned it, but we have Sherlyn Bratcher. And Sherlyn is our SEL specialist with our CRISA team. And, we are constantly hearing about, our teachers need support, our administrators need support with self-care, resiliency, just taking care of ourselves. How do we take care of the people that we work with? And so Sherlyn's going to have a few minutes this morning, and she's going to go over some great strategies for you, and maybe just try to think about how you can utilize those in your position to support not only yourself, but the teachers and the staff that you work with. So Sherlyn.
Yes, ma'am. Let's see if I can share my screen.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Perfect. Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. All right. So, like Kelly said, today we're just going to talk about self-care for you, self-care for your staff. And so right now in the chat, if you would, I would like for you to tell me, like, just do a quick little survey here of where we are. And I can tell you from me, from where I was at the beginning of the morning until right now is totally different. If you're a 5, if you're like, yeah, let's get this going, it's a great day, or a 1, no, I need to go back home. I need to walk back out that door. So give me a scale from 1 to 5 of where you are. And this is a simple way to start meetings, just to kind of get a feel of the room when you're meeting, whether it's PLC meetings, whether it is a faculty meeting. Bart talked about the connection cards. That's a great way to kind of just, it's almost like a grounding activity to kind of get everybody back into thinking not about what's happened, but where we are right now. And so thank you all for filling that out. And so you can do this a couple of different ways. You can do this. You could do, I was in a meeting the other day that had everybody come up with a picture on their phone that made them smile, and then shared with a couple of people around them. So like I said, you can do a couple of different things to kind of get people kind of centered into the meeting. Self-care is basically just focusing on your physical, mental, and emotional health. Sometimes we think about only one area of that. We kind of want to silo them into, we only worry about the physical. We get, exercise. We do, meditation or yoga or something along those lines, but we don't think that we need to do all 3. And you really do need to focus on all 3 because that helps build resiliency. When you come into a meeting and you're talking to someone and they get really upset, then, typically their resilience level is not where it needs to be. Because if your resilience level is where it needs to be, a lot of times you cannot go from 1 to 10 in a split second. Same thing with our students. When we're talking with students who, have anger issues, anger management issues, a lot of times they're not learning those resiliency skills. Not to date me too much, but when I was in school, we had character ed, we had life skills classes that taught us those things. And somewhere along the way, we kind of lost those classes because of academics. We needed more academic classes. We needed more career and tech classes. So we needed all of these classes, but we lost that content of self-care, of the competencies of SEL. And now we're seeing that we have this group of students who can't manage their emotions, who can't deal with things that are going on. And the same thing sometimes, especially in this past year, with adults. Adults, this has been something that we have not been able to handle sometimes. And I'm an introvert. I am a huge introvert, but even the isolation of COVID when we were all shut down, that even bothered me. So a couple of things, I'm going to go over 10 different strategies today. And while I'm going over them, I want you guys to think about, 1, how could you help your teachers incorporate some of these strategies? And then 2, if there's something in there, like I kind of go over them and then I list some examples. So if there's some examples that maybe I don't include, I'd love for you to, add that into the chat also. I'm actually presenting this to a local district's Friskies. They're having a family mental health meeting. So I would love to be able to add some more to this presentation. So the first one is meditation and mindfulness. And I think, mindfulness and SEL have become huge buzzwords in the last year. And these things are something that's very simple. You could start your day. And I don't mean just yours personally. I mean like the whole school. So as again, Bart was talking about, leading meetings, ask your principal if you could lead, the day, maybe after, if you do a whole building-wide Pledge of Allegiance, maybe after that, start out with a mindfulness. And it doesn't have to be long. I mean, 1 minute to 5 minutes is all that you really need, but it just kind of centers everybody. Make sure your teachers are modeling for the kids. but this would be something not only for you, but for your teachers and your students. And so some examples, just some quiet time, I sometimes, and if anybody was ever in my classroom would know, I always had music. If I was not teaching and the students were working, I had music playing. As a school counselor, I always had music playing. And even now in my cubicle, I always have earbuds in. I just always have to have music. And so there are just times though, when I get home and I just kind of sit with nothing on, no background noise, and you just kind of have to just refocus and reflect on everything that's happened throughout the day. Deep breathing. One of the big ones that I always do is a box breathing. It's very simple. You could really just think of it as a box, but you inhale by 4 seconds, inhaling in, you hold it for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold for 4. And so this again is an easy one to walk your staff, yourself, and your students through. And like the elementary students, they love doing the little box breathing. Middle school and high school, I always explain to them that this is an activity that is taught to our Navy SEALs and our military. And so, when sometimes I'll have football players or somebody, they're like, no, I can't do that, Miss Fletcher. I'm like, if Navy SEALs can do it, you can do it. And so I always try to bring that in. A body scan is just a simple, just kind of look, feeling from your head down to your toes. Where am I holding my stress? Thinking about your head, does it have a lot going on right now? Like, are you thinking about 10 different things that you need to be doing? Your neck and shoulders, that's typically where I hold a lot of my stress. Does it feel tight? And then, sometimes with the little ones, it's their stomach. They have like tummy aches. And so, just kind of walk them through like, where do they feel, the stress going on? Guided imagery is also a really good one, to just kind of think about what's your happy place. It could be maybe, out on the lake fishing. It could be the ocean, the mountains, out in your garden. Maybe, you have a grandbaby that you love, being around or holding or anything like that. So it could be whatever it is that makes you happy, that whatever it makes you relax, you just have that kind of moment. But just kind of thinking about that, you can close your eyes, you can look down and just deep breathe, thinking about that experience. Think about the sounds that you would hear, think about the smells, think about what you see. And so that's a really simple exercise. Progressive muscle, and I have links on here. Kelly, are you going to share the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Or the Google slide? Okay.
Yes.
So some of these that have lines, there are links so that you can go to an example. Progressive muscle relaxation. It's a really good one. And you see people doing this like a lot of times on airplanes. They'll start with their feet and they take their shoes off and then they'll scrunch their toes up and then they release. And that's because they're nervous about flying. And so like releasing that, and then, they just slowly move themselves up, like from their calves. They'll tighten up their calves. They'll tighten up their thighs, release their abs, their arms. They'll scrunch up their neck. I do that a lot here, even like, if you're just sitting and you're typing and you're on the computer a lot of times, it just kind of all gets right here in your neck and your shoulders. So if you just like scrunch up your shoulders and hold it for about 4 or 5 seconds and then release, and do that several times with deep breathing in between, that really kind of just starts, relaxing your shoulders a little bit. Sometimes when I was talking to students, I would say, let's do some deep breathing. And they would be like, Ms. Fletcher, I know how to breathe. And I'm like, yeah, but you're breathing kind of heavy, or your shoulders are up to your ears. Let's kind of, relax that. And so that's what that muscle relaxation does. It kind of helps because sometimes, as the day goes on, our neck kind of starts disappearing because we get more and more stressed. Mindful eating. We're all educators. We know in the school, you rarely have time to eat. But, just take, even if it's like, a minute to eat a piece of chocolate, or, to eat a piece of peppermint, whatever it might be, I was huge on eating a granola bar going up and down the hallway as lunch. That's just what we do. But just take a few minutes to, think about that. And then coloring, I have a notebook and I love it. I got it from Western a couple of years ago. They dropped it off. And on one side, it is an adult coloring book page. And then I have notes on the other side. And so I love it because in meetings or just whenever, I can kind of doodle. I'm still listening, but I can kind of doodle and draw and color and still kind of think about some different things. So those are some examples of just doing some meditation, some mindfulness. So again, if you have some other examples, please put those in the chat. Nature. Now, this is one that I'm not a huge fan of because nature has bugs and snakes, and I don't like any of that. But a lot of people find it very relaxing. So I'm going to cover it. And I will say that there is research that shows that hospital patients who have either a window or have a picture in their room of landscapes or something like that heal faster. So there is research behind that, having, some type of nature. So if you have a window in your office, kudos to you because, for almost like 17 years, I didn't have a window in my classroom or my office. So, enjoy that natural light, enjoy looking out every so often and enjoying that. Even, going out and taking a walk, whether it's at the park or taking a hike, if you like, if you do something like that. We're close enough to Mammoth Cave. So if you enjoy going out on a trail, that might be something that you do. Or your garden, maybe you like doing flowers, doing that kind of thing. Again, all of my flowers kind of die. So I've already killed 3 of them that I just got 2 weeks ago. So I'm not really good with that. Indoor plants, that's another suggestion. Again, not a good one for me. I've already killed 2 succulents. I didn't think you could kill those things, but you can. So I need to focus on pictures. I just need to look at pictures. But anything that you can do with nature, a lot of people regenerate when they're in nature and the smells, they love that. The feel of the air, all of those kind of things. Music, when Bart started playing Adele, that was a great thing for me because I love listening to it. Anytime that I'm doing anything in my house, I have music going. One of the things that I did a couple of weeks ago, I started asking different people, what's the song that makes you happy? So if you would in the chat, because I want to add to my happy playlist that I'm going to play at this training in a couple of weeks, put the song that really makes you happy. A couple of them that I got from some of my friends was Justin Timberlake, Can't Stop the Feeling, Miley Cyrus, Party in the USA. I had somebody say, and this was a student a couple of years ago of mine, and he said anything the Beach Boys, which I just loved because he's 20 years old and he just loves the Beach Boys. Happy from Pharrell, and then Eye of the Tiger. So think about a song that when you listen to it, it just automatically, lifts your spirit, gets you going. It could even makes you kind of dance around a little bit. So if you would kind of put that into the chat for me, I'm kind of excited to see that. Kelly, can you read a couple of them for me? Because I can't see the chat.
Thunderstruck by AC/DC, Smile, Footloose.
Oh, yes.
Sweet Caroline, Stevie Wonder, anything from Stevie Wonder. Let's Go Crazy by Prince, Living on a Prayer.
Yes.
Oh, there's lots. So
they're so good. I love it.
Celebration. Yes. Some really, really good ones. Hotel California. Oh, I love that one. Walking on Sunshine. Staying Alive.
Oh, there you go. Oh, see this, I'm loving it. So these are some great songs. And I would even suggest, we did this a couple of times at the middle school, and then we did it last year at the high school when our students were finally we were an A and a B schedule, hybrid. And then when we were able to bring them together, we came up with all these songs about together again kind of things. And so in between each transition and in the morning, we played music and the students love it. And you could see the teachers out in the hallway as they were watching the students going, from class to class, they were kind of dancing around. So I would even suggest, maybe occasionally, playing some music at school and kind of getting, your staff, whether it's at lunch, we do that sometimes at lunch, try to, incorporate music, because as you saw, it took no time for you guys to come up with several different songs that get you excited and get you happy. Another one, going for a walk. I would even say, whether it's in the morning or afternoon, even if you can take like, I know a lot of times assistant principals do the safety check. So, while you're going around doing your safety check of the doors, your exterior doors, maybe go, oops, maybe I forgot one, and take another lap around the building, just kind of check, just kind of walk around, whether it's, 15, 20 minutes, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a whole hour. This is just to kind of re-energize you, okay, for the rest of the day. And you can do a mindful walking, and that's just kind of along the same lines as mindful eating, of just, really concentrating on what you're doing. What does your feet feel like? What are about your muscles, about your arms? What are you hearing? What are you seeing while you're walking? So any of those kind of things are some great examples of just getting out and walking. Again, for your teachers, I would suggest maybe if you have somebody in your building, whether it's you or someone else, it could be your PE teacher, but maybe, start the day with a 10-minute, walk or 15-minute walk with your staff, and, kind of get them going, or maybe you do it at the end of the day. And that's a great way to kind of just get the staff all together and do something. Gratitude journal. This is something that we started, I think it was in August at our faculty meeting here. We got one of these gratitude journals, and, before I go to bed at night, I just fill it out. It's very simple. It just asks for 3 things that I'm grateful for. It asks a couple of questions, but if you don't want to invest in an actual journal like this, you could just get just a little notebook and just kind of write down. There is, I want to say LaRue, but I'm not sure, a principal that is posting or tweeting on Twitter what he's thankful for every morning. He sends it out, and it's so great to kind of share. And, and some of his faculty has started, commenting on it. So that's a great way to kind of really think about it. And what I've tried to do is think of things, different things each day. So, every day we could say that we're thankful for our family, we're thankful for our faith, we're thankful for, we could come up with several things, our friends, but I try to come up with some different things. And then sometimes I'll put those things, those things that I want to repeat every day, I'll put them all together. And then I come up with some different things, because there's always something grateful, whether it is, that it's not, snowing or raining, or, like the weather is beautiful outside. I mean, there's just something that you can always be grateful for, or maybe it could be that you got to work and somebody had put a note on your desk that simply said, thank you for something that you did yesterday. That's a huge thing, is to, have gratitude and be grateful for personal things, but also show that to other people, but be very specific. Don't just say, I'm really grateful for what you did yesterday, but explain what they did, explain how it helped you, kind of give them some real specifics, because if not, then it just kind of sounds like, oh, you kind of didn't really mean it. So be really specific. Come up with things that, make you happy, or even somebody that makes you happy. That kind of do things. And then even think about like some vacation ideas, like what could you do? What would you do if you could go anywhere? What would it look like, kind of thing, and start, thinking of along those lines. Engaging your senses. This is a grounding exercise. It's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is one that I would say probably most of your school counselors do. It is simply, let's just bring ourselves, we are, especially if you're having a moment of anxiety, or you're just at a very high, I don't really want to say anxiety, but your emotions are very high, then doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 really kind of brings you back and kind of focus you and let you slow down a little bit. So basically what you do, again, there's a link, but looking at the senses, the picture right beside, you think of 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear. Then you go down diagonal, 3 things that you could touch, go up to the smell, 2 things that you can smell, and then 1 thing that you can taste. So it's kind of a little jig jag, on the scale here, the sight, the hearing, the touch, the smell, and then the touch. But you do that and you think about these things. And again, while you're doing it, you've got to do some, breathing, but you're thinking about those scented candles, around the holidays, I love like cinnamon kind of scents, or things that kind of remind me of my childhood, like walking into my grandparents' house or something like that. Some people love taking hot bath, hot showers. That seems to really help. Listening to soothing sounds. You can get the Calm app. The Calm app was giving educators free access. So, you do have to pay for extra for, some other things, but there is there is a version that is free for educators. So, listening to that every so often, and just kind of bringing yourself back into the present. Again, alone time, sometimes, the bathroom is the only time that we really have alone time. And we just need to be able to have just a little bit of time, whether it is, going for a massage, and sometimes this one is the hardest one because we start feeling guilty about taking this personal time, taking this time just for me. But if we are not at our highest game, then we're not going to be able to help our students, help our faculty, help our family. So we have to do things that's going to help ourselves first. And so, these are just some examples that, you could do during your, while you're by yourself. The next one is, family and friends, just as alone time is important, being social. And I think that we all really noticed that during the pandemic, when we were not able to have get-togethers. We weren't able to go out to restaurants and hang out. We weren't able to go to movies. So now being able to, do that a little bit more is a huge thing. I know at the end of last year, TPAC was like, we're going to have season passes. We're opening up. And a friend of mine, we were both like, yeah, I don't even care how much they are. Yes, we're going to go, just because it was an opportunity for us to do something together and get out. And so, we just did our first one a couple of weeks ago, and it was just great for the experience. So just make sure that you do these things with your family, make that time. I think we've all noticed that is such an important area in our life, is that we have to make time for our friends and our family. And then something that we do here, Chase Goff, who is our director for CRRSA, he kind of introduced this to us, I think it was in July. And this is called a mind sweep. And it's kind of like a to-do list, but not necessarily. You can start off your meetings like this, and this is a great way to start off a meeting. And we do this a lot here, where you just give them like 3 to 5 minutes, and they are to write down everything that they're thinking about. So whether it is, about childcare, whether it is about what they got to pick up at the grocery store, or what they have to do, whatever it might be, they start, listing all of these things it's going on in their head, all of the lesson plans that they need to do, whatever it might be, they list everything. Now, the big thing is like, if they need to purchase something, they can't get on Walmart's app and start ordering it. That has to wait, but at least it's down and they don't have to worry about it. So it's similar to a to-do list for me. And how I do it, because it really stressed me out the first time that I was doing it, because I was trying to only focus on like things that I needed to do at work, or things that I needed to do at home. And so what I do is I draw a line down the page, and I put, as things are popping in my head, I put the things that, for professional work things on the left, and then personal things on the right. And that just helps me, and it makes it go a lot faster for me. But again, you do it any way that you want, but this is a great way to kind of really start, so that then you can all focus on the meeting at hand, what's going on, what needs to be done. You can be as general or specific that you need. But like I said, this is a great task to do with your staff before meetings. a break from electronics. I think all of us during this, we were like really increased. Like I noticed, how like your phone on Sundays always tells you like how much you've been on your phone the week before. And so like I'm sitting there like looking at it, and I've noticed that it was going up. And so I try to, about an hour, hour and a half before I go to bed, I put my phone up. I start charging it. I don't have it ringing. The only person, I'll put it on silent. It's always on silent. I started that when I was in a classroom. But the only way that I actually hear it is if it's one of my family members. I have them in my favorites. And so and I have it set up so if they call me, I can hear it. But if anybody else calls or texts or anything, then my phone just kind of does a little vibration and that's it. I used to be really bad about reading at night on my phone. And then I would, I'd start reading, or even on my Kindle, I would read, and then the book would get really good. And I'd be like, oh, just one more chapter. Oh, one more chapter. Oh, it's really good. I want one more chapter, and you kind of get the same thing with like, TV shows. If you're watching a series, you're just like, oh my gosh, it's a cliffhanger. Now I've got to watch the next one. And it'll be like midnight, 1:00 before you go to bed. So try to, get a schedule and then break yourself from the electronics sometimes. Chase is really good about when we're meeting. He wants, he prefers that our laptops are closed and that we kind of step away from our electronics. We're not around there, because if you have your electronic up, what are you doing? You're looking at email, you're looking at something on Amazon, you're looking at a presentation that you have to do, later on, or a report that you have to do. So, having everybody to kind of close the electronics, put the phones away, really gets you to center in and focus. Same thing at home. When you do that, you're focusing in on yourself and on your family. So if you would, in the chat, kind of think about, and I'll go back up to the 10, there it is. So think about these 10 self-strategies and self-care strategies, and think about how could you encourage or help your staff with any of these. And it doesn't matter which one that you pick, but which one could you help your staff, improve their self-care, to help them with reducing their stress level, helping them with refocusing and recentering themselves. So, and it can be something that I didn't even come up with. Maybe you're going to come up with an idea that I can actually include in here for my future presentations. That would be awesome. So come up with something that you could do for your staff to help with our self-care, and put that in the chat, please. And then there is my information and my contact. So if you ever need, coming up with things to do, like for mornings, or even if you wanted a self-care calendar or any of those kind of things, a lot of that is out there, available. I can give you resources. Or if you just wanted like a 1 to 5 minute activity to do every morning, either with your staff or your host school, I can come up with, 30 and send to you, and that'll start you off for a month. So, if you need anything, just contact me. I would love to help you in any way that I can.
All right. Thanks, Shirlene. There's a lot of great examples coming in the chat. Have meditation time during faculty meetings, building time into the calendar for teachers to have self-care. I love that. Self-care calendars. Oh yeah, thank you all for sharing. So lots of great ideas, and I'm going to tell you all, Shirlene is a great resource for you all. So I hope that you did take down her information. I've had a lot of texts coming to me, a lot of messages over my mail. Yes, I will share out her slides with you. All right, we'll have some other slides today as well. So when we finish up today, I'll share out all of those slides and any of the resources from today, so you'll have access to those. And so feel free, reach out. You can let me know if you want to get connected with Shirlene, and I will get you connected. But you know, self-care is huge right now. And so while you need to take care of yourself, hopefully you found some ways that you can support your teachers as well. So thank you so much, Shirlene.
Thanks.
And I think if you follow along in the chat, you're going to find some additional ideas that what others are doing, and that you can hopefully pull from some of those as well. So
Yes, I'm definitely getting ready to capture it.
yes. So lots of great ideas popping in there. And that might be something before we end today, we're gonna spend some time in some breakout rooms. So that might be some additional time that you all can talk more about self-care and some of the things that you're doing, and brainstorm on that as well. So thanks, Shirlene. I appreciate you so much. Great job. So, all right, we're gonna transition over, and we have Scott Howard with us here today. And well, I'll just let Scott tell you what he does. He works with safety, and, you know, in all of our conversations, you know, I'm found out, you know, that most of you, or a lot of you, are probably the point person in your school for safety. And so Scott and then his teammate, Brad Stevenson, they may even have been visiting with you. So I'm just going to let him share a little update with you all, let you know how he can support you in your role as well. So Scott, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Hey, Kelly, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invite. It's so, I'm honored to be a part of this group. I think assistant principals have a very important job, and some of what Bart talked about earlier and what Kelly's already talked about, carving out your own niche and always planning for that promotion, but being excellent at what you do. I think that's just awesome. And so a little bit about me, as I know several of you that's on the call, but I was in an assistant principal role once upon a time, and then went on to be the principal. And then the last 12 years, I was superintendent of Butler County Schools. So now I'm doing some Safe Schools work for GREC, part of the STAR Safety Grant. And the reason I think Kelly asked me if I would say a few things is just what she mentioned, that a lot of times when we go to a school to do a safety visit, the assistant principal is our contact person. That's who takes us around, shows us the school. So we just want to make sure that you guys know that GREC is there to help in any way we can in all areas, school safety, in all areas really. But if there's something I can do for you at school safety, as Kelly mentioned, Brad Stevenson works with us on the STAR grant, the STAR Safety Grant. Brad's a retired KSP police officer. And we also have Leon Smith. Leon's a former superintendent at Russellville Independent. And we have Wes Cornett. Wes was a principal in Somerset. So we have a 4-member team that go out and do these school visits. Let me tell you a little bit about the STAR Safety Grant. So a couple years ago, GREC wrote the STAR Safety Grant with the Department of Justice. It's basically twofold. One is we look for professional, high-powered professional development that we could bring to GREC that would save you guys from driving to Louisville or Lexington, and maybe it'd be a little bit closer. And we've had a couple of those events already, and we've got one planned for after Christmas. Actually, in February, we're going to have Dr. Peter Langman at GREC for a full day. And Dr. Langman is a national expert on identifying school shooters and avoiding school shooting.
That's a little odd. And I said, that demon that just.
We're excited about that. And then the second part of the STAR Safety Grant is we work with Ben Wilcox and the State Security Marshal's office, and we go out and try to visit each school and make sure that you're in compliance when Ben and his people, before Ben and his people come. Or if Ben and some of his deputies have already been to your school and they leave you recommendations, we just try to work with you and offer any kind of resource we can to make sure that that you get in compliance by the end of this year. We all know that this year is for lack of better words, it's the summative year where all of that stuff, all those things that Ben and his people are looking for come to fruition, and you've got to be in compliance by July 1. So again, we're just another set of eyes, and as we walk through, we're just there to help. And if there's anything that comes up, or you have any concerns about school safety, or if there's anything I can research for you or look up and do the legwork, I'd be glad to do that. But again, my name's Scott Howard for the ones that don't know me. My email is just like everybody at Greg, scott.howard@greg.org. Shoot me an email. I'll put it in the chat. But anything Greg can do school safety wise, just know that we're there to help, and be glad to come out and visit with you and talk to you. And look forward to doing that. Kelly, thanks again for having me. I really have enjoyed Sherlin's presentation and John Lyons' presentation. Very good. And I know the breakout sessions are going to be great as well. So thanks again. Again, anything I can do to help school safety wise, guys, just give me a holler and I'll be glad to do it.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your support. And I know that the schools appreciate your support with safety as well. So please reach out to him if you have any questions or thoughts or need any resources or help in the area of school safety. He'd be a great resource for you. So we appreciate him taking a few minutes to join us this morning as well. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to, we have one more speaker today. And I don't know, Kyle, maybe I saved the best for last.
That's right.
So Kyle Cassidy.
I'm gonna disagree with that.
Uh-oh.
I hear you, Dan.
Yes, and that's Dan Costello on here with us as well. So I think most of you know know Dan, but he's going to be helping us out with our breakout sessions in a little while as well. So Dan, do you want to say anything before?
No, I
turn
just
it over to
want
Kyle?
to say I got to give Kyle some grief. Kyle's a friend. He was here at Greg for several years before I came, but we've worked together at Warren County Schools, and he's a great resource for all the principals and assistant principals and other administrators down there. So I know if you need anything, he's a big help. And same with me, if there's anything I can do to help you all. I was assistant principal for 4 years before I was principal for 6, and I came here a year ago, and it's been a long, fun ride, and learned a lot of things along the way. So please reach out anytime I can help you. But yeah, we're glad to have Kyle and Scott and everybody here this morning, John and Bart. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, Kelly.
All right, thanks, Dan. Kyle, I'm just going to turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself and just get started.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And again, thank you, Greg and Bart Fleener and people I've worked with in the past. Scott Howard's a good friend of mine, and Dan. I see a lot of L2L folks on here. That's a Leading to Learn grant that was occurring back 4 or 5 years ago, and it helped support folks on some training, and it sent them back to WKU to get their principal certification. So it's always good to see old friends that we become acquainted through Greg and a grant that I was fortunate enough to be able to run. And then Sherlyn Bratcher, my first acquaintance with Sherlyn was unfortunately down in Marshall County on January 23rd of 2018 when they had that school shooting. We served on a crisis team together, but she's a phenomenal resource there for social emotional learning for Greg, and always reach out to her and that team whenever there's a need in your school or district. So Kelly, I'm going to try to share my screen. You let me know if everything works out.
Perfect.
Does that work?
Yes.
All right. So we're good. Okay. Ironically, what has already been discussed through John Lyons and Sherlyn Bratcher and Scott Howard are some of the same things that I'm going to talk about as it relates to the Assistant Principals Network meeting today. It's a great opportunity for assistant principals to not only be involved in the management day-to-day task, but also to build some credibility as it relates to instructional leadership. So our learning targets today, we're just going to talk about the typical stereotypes of the roles of assistant principals. We're going to talk about the emerging instructional leadership characteristics of an effective leader. And I'm going to talk to you about one process that we're utilizing here in Warren County. It's through the Studer Education Group, Nanette Johnston. It's opportunities to check on your people's social and emotional health through rounding. Dan knows a little bit about that. And then we're also going to talk about, I'm just going to use this platform real quick to talk about the benefits and membership of KASA. I am the regional KASA representative, and I'm just going to make sure that you're aware of what's out there as it relates to our profession and the benefits that are out there through that organization. So again, appreciate Greg asking me to do this. And so moving on, typical role of the assistant principal. The perception is that assistant principals, oftentimes dealing with those managerial tasks that John Lyons referred to, discipline, bus tape schedules, contact tracing, monitoring cafeteria, phone calls to parents, supervising student activities, some evaluation of staff, etc. Really, I'll tell you what we've experienced here in Warren County. Warren County is the fourth largest district in the state. We've got approximately 17,000 students. We have had 34 changes as it relates to school leadership over the last 2 years since the pandemic. That is tremendous. We've lost through retirements, through job changes. We've had some principals even go back to the classroom because it is a very stressful, unforeseen job requirement as it relates to school leadership. The pandemic has only added to that, but we've had 34 changes as it relates to deans, assistant principals, and principals. So we're all the time trying to create and build capacity as it relates to instructional leadership. We're recruiting, we're having aspiring principal meetings within our district. And then we have something that's called the Administrator Support Network, where we're pulling in our new principals for a 2-year span to help provide them with the supports to help them be successful. So with that being said, with those typical stereotypes of the assistant principal, we're also trying to encourage our assistant principals to get out there and build some instructional capacity outside of the norm. When it becomes an opportunity for a position to be open within our district, we want great managers, but it's essential that we have instructional leaders. So when opportunities present themselves, getting involved with assisting in the interviewing process. Hiring teachers is one of the most impactful things that you can do, and those teachers have to be effective. So whenever we're going through and I've found that when we have Western in our back door, the surrounding counties, Butler, Edmonton, Allen, oftentimes Warren County gets a larger portion of applicants because we're right here partnered with Western. So whenever you get the opportunity to hire the best, hire the best. And we still have principals and assistant principals, but when it comes to the season of letting people go, we still have principals struggling to have those hard conversations. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's best for students. And I always use the gauge. If my personal children would not benefit from being in an individual's classroom, why would I want other people's kids to be in that classroom? So that's what I use personally as a gauge to when it comes to making those tough decisions. Offer to help create school-wide goals. become involved in the school's budget. There's been a norm of assistant principals and principals within Warren County that struggle with school budgeting because they've never had that experience. So I know we've got some Warren County assistant principals on this call today. Get involved in that school's budget if you want to become a principal. Be around those type of conversations. There's a lot of different pots of money that we deal with, whether it be site-based or ESSER or different title dollars. Become aware of those opportunities and be a part of that decision-making on how best to utilize those dollars. Offer to conduct staff meetings. This is an opportunity for your teachers in your building to see you in a different light, to see you as an instructional leader, to do something as it relates to instruction as opposed to the typical assistant principal's role. And then one thing we're really pushing here in our district, and I'm sure you are as well, facilitate PLCs, those professional learning communities. And we had a conversation with our folks the other day. We've got to start bringing data to those meetings on a regular basis. If data is not there, then we really don't need to meet. It's nothing more than a guided planning meeting. So in order to have a true PLC, we've got to bring data to the table, and we've got to talk about those instructional strategies that's working within our classroom, maybe some instructional strategies that are not working. That collaboration or that opportunity really gives the incentive for other teachers to jump on board and to consider what they're doing day in and day out as it relates to instruction. The non-negotiables as an effective school leader. Again, just like what John talked about earlier, assistant principals, you've got to build a level of trust with your principals. You've got to have a united front, so to speak. It's okay to agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, that principal or your principal, they're the ones who's out there. They're the ones, that's where the buck stops. So you've got to have their back, and they're going to have your back, we hope. One of the big things that we push here in Warren County, and it's constantly on our superintendent's agenda, whether it be for administrators or for teachers, is an effective communicator. Most of the issues that come about within our schools, and we've got a lot of different schools and a lot of different kids and a lot of different major issues, but communication is one of those things that oftentimes can help resolve those. It can be a proactive approach. So being an effective communicator can oftentimes help alleviate those issues that may arise. Desire to help students succeed, have strong organizational skills, pay attention to detail, familiar with technology, celebrate student and teacher success. That's one of the things that when I was a principal for 6 years in Edmonson County at the middle school, I always tried to celebrate student success, but you've got to celebrate your teachers too. It's been a hard, rough road for the last 20 months, and we've got to find times and opportunities to celebrate their success. And we've got to be looking at not only achievement for students, but student growth. That's one of the things that we're constantly looking at here in our district, and we've got to cash in on those opportunities. I know this sounds a little low level, but follow the law. Be ethical. There's people all over our state, usually each week, that are in trouble because they just don't follow the law or they're doing something unethical. And if you're a member of KASA and you're getting those executive news briefing, those topics or those issues often are on there, and they're like, it's unbelievable that this is going on. So follow the law. Be willing to reach out whenever you're unsure of a situation. I reached out to Kentucky Center for School Safety just yesterday on a situation that was happening within our district. Reach out to Wayne Young from Kentucky Association of School Administrators on a pretty regular basis. And at the end of the day, be willing to make those hard decisions. You've got to be separate from your staff. You've got to be willing to make those hard decisions on what's best for those kids in the classroom. And if you befriend teachers, you've got to be careful. I've known assistant principals and principals that would do things outside of school. They'd go to the movies with their teachers, and that provides somewhat of an issue when it becomes to making some decisions on what's best for your school and students. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be careful if you do it. Be willing to make those tough decisions. What is it that your teachers need? The majority of them just want time. One of the best things that I did as a principal, and it was nothing that I did other than I just created a schedule. Each Tuesday was a half-day planning for a certain grade level and content area. So I brought in, I know Scott Howard will find this amazing that Patrick Waddell allotted me some subs to come in, but I had subs come in and cover these classes to allow at least 3 teachers from my math department to have a half-day planning. Then I would move those 3 subs to another content area in the afternoon and allow 3 additional teachers that same planning opportunity. So they would have 3.5 hours of planning, collaboration, PLCs, looking at data, talking about instructional strategies. That really helped my credibility with my teachers, and I think it really helped our student achievement because there was some curriculum alignment, there was some strong, meaningful conversations, and oftentimes they're obligated outside of school. So in the afternoon, they have kids, they have activities. You all remember those days, and some of you, like myself, if you don't know, I've got a 6-month-old. There's obligations in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, a lot of times that time is precious to them personally. So if you can create time in the day, it's a win-win. Now there's going to be some teachers with a pushback. There's going to be teachers that's going to say, well, I'm losing instructional time with my students. That's true, but you've got to look at it as an investment. You've got to give up a little to get more. So if you look at it in that term, I think teachers will be on board for the most part. So in reference to Shirlene Bratcher's conversation this morning, I want to go back and what are we doing for our people? What are we doing for our teachers? And what is maybe central office doing for principals? There's a process that we're going through, and we've been going through this for several years, and it's called rounding. And basically it's a process where each central office employee is given 3 or 4 school leaders, whether they be a principal, assistant principal, or dean. And we go out and we meet with these people at least twice a year. And we ask these 4 questions. What is working well? Do you have the resources you need to do your job? Is there anything that I can do better to help you perform well? Is there anyone who has been especially helpful to you? So it's not rocket science, but it is something that's very intentional. Every leader in our district is having a conversation with, and then we bring that information back to central office, and we sort of vet through that to say, what are the hot issues that maybe we're not even aware of? Because there's things that's going on in our district, there's things that's going on in classrooms, there's things that's going on in our schools that sometimes we're the first to know, but sometimes we're not the first to know. So we've got to be on the forefront and have conversations and build some trust with our principals to let them know that, if there's issues out there, that we'll try to get them addressed. And a lot of times it goes back to being an effective communicator. I was in a school last week and I was having a PLC with 1st grade teachers around a new reading program. And I was having conversations around their implementation of this new program. Come to find out they didn't have the computers for their kids to do this work. So it was a lack of communication on their part to the principal. It was a lack of communication from the principal to the teachers to know what they needed. So it was an easy fix, but not everybody is talking at the same level. So that's always a concern and issue. The benefits of rounding, it's an opportunity to really build relationships, to know your people, to build trust, to build opportunities where they feel confident to let you know what's working, what's not working. Opens the door for feedback. Again, it builds trust, opportunity to ask questions, share opinions, and clarify priorities. And then number 5, it's just intentional. Every leader in our district is going to have a rounding opportunity with someone, and that makes it meaningful. I think it's a process that I think assistant principals and principals could do with teachers. And a lot of times when you have those conversations and you're asking them what they need, you're asking them about their family, you're asking them about their kids, about their activities. It's just making that connection, those relationships with your teachers, to let them know that you've got their back. I saw this on Twitter, so I just, this is not my work. It's something that I've stolen for sure. My leadership philosophy: hire the best. That's one of the most important things that you can do as a principal or assistant principal, is hire the most effective teachers that's going to be in front of your kids day in and day out. Does anyone have a 100% effective hiring rate? Probably not. There's a lot of people that can snowbird or snowball you in an interview, but within the first year, maybe 2 years, you should be able to make judgment on that individual and their effectiveness with students. Give them what they need. Again, if you hire the best, you give them what they need, basically get out of their way. Now, are there situations where individuals need to be micromanaged? I'm sure there are. But for the most part, our district, we try to have the theme of autonomy, and we let both principals, assistant principals, and teachers make a lot of decisions as it relates to what's best for kids. And we try to resist the urge to micromanage. One of the last things I'll talk about, again, I'm the regional representative for KASA, is just the professional membership benefits of being a part of this. I know we've got some of you all that are members, and we've got some of you all that are not. Basically, it's an opportunity to have access to network with over 3,100 state school leaders across the state. There is an annual conference in late July where there's a lot of professional learning and networking opportunities. One of my favorite things, and I'm sure some of you all can, Dan and Scott and Kelly, one of my favorite things is reaching out to Wayne Young whenever I have an issue or a concern. Wayne Young is the legal counsel for KASA. He's usually a phone call away. It's an opportunity for me to run things by Wayne before maybe I would ask my superintendent or my principal, or before I'd have to pay a fee for our legal counsel at the district level. There's an opportunity for low-cost liability insurance. Again, there's professional learning opportunities. And one of the things that I check out almost on a daily basis is I get emails from the executive news briefing. It's just hot topics throughout the state that's going on. So it's just something that takes 5 minutes to read and sort of let you know some hot issues or concerns that's going on throughout the state or legislative. What does it cost to join? Basically, it's 0.003% of your salary. So if you make $60,000 times 0.003, it's $180 a year. And I would think that's a pretty fair, equitable membership dues as it relates to a professional association. So at this time, if any questions as it relates to what's going on in our district, as it relates to Warren County with rounding, with KASA membership, there's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me through email. If you want further insight around my PLC schedule at the middle school and how we pull that off with having grade level teachers covered and giving them half-day plans, I'd be willing to have an additional conversation with you in reference to that as well. So again, thank you, Kelly Thompson, former colleague that we spent a lot of time together running the Leading to Learn grant, and I always value your professionalism and expertise.
All right, thanks, Kyle. I know, I mean, I love the discussion around the rounding. My mind was just twirling, you know, thinking about how beneficial that intentional focus could be if you implemented that as an assistant principal with teachers, or just how would you implement that in your building? So some great conversations, great ideas I think we've heard today, and hopefully there'll be some things that you can think through more and hopefully talk about when we go into the breakouts, and just leave here today with knowing some additional strategies to just build your toolbox and lead you down that path to becoming, you know, just a more effective leader as you move along in your journey. So thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. And like I said, I'll share out the slides for today. And if there's any additional information you want from Kyle, feel free to reach out to him. He's a great resource, and we're good friends, but he is really a great resource, and enjoyed working with him here at GREC, and just continue to stay in contact with him because he is, you know, he's just a great resource for us. So, all right.
Kelly?
Yes.
If you don't
Yes.
care, I want to jump in. I want to add something to one of Kyle's comments about hiring the best people. And, you know, sometimes, especially right now, you just hope to get some people. I know at the middle school and high school level, you just hope you get an applicant or two or three. So you don't really have many options. But I'll tell you one thing that I really did a lot as a principal, and I think you all, you know, Bart talked about ways that you can make yourself stand out, and, you know, John touched on that too. How are you gonna stand out? How are you gonna kind of not only support your school, but promote yourself and give yourself some opportunities? Social media is a great way for you to promote your school and the great things going on there. If you're a teacher and you're deciding which school in Barron County or Warren County or Edmonson County you want to work at next year, and you go to look on Twitter and you don't see anything, you might be a little more apprehensive to apply at that school than you would one that's really got a great social media presence. Now, be very careful and don't make it all about you. You know, don't like put yourself in every picture, or, you know, retweet yourself all the time, that sort of thing from the school account. But you want to draw great people to your school. They need to know what's going on there. And so that's a way that you can, one, not only help your school and support your principal and draw great teachers to your school, but also it gives you a leadership role. And your principal and others will see that you're doing that. I mean, they're going to figure out who's doing the tweeting and the promotion on social media. And so that's just one more way you can help yourself and help your school.
I would add to that, Dan, that Todd Whitaker refers to Twitter as one of the most powerful professional developments for educators. I read Twitter probably 2 or 3 times a day just to find out what's going on in our district and other districts, and make sure that we're on the cutting edge as it relates to what's best for students.
Yeah, it's great. There's a ton of great stuff out there, and a lot of people you can follow and good information that you can receive. So yeah, Kyle, thank you for being with us this morning. Hey, Kelly, I've got a couple of things I want to share before we go into breakout groups. I don't know if we're at that point yet or not.
Yeah, right ahead.
So some of you all got the email from me. Hopefully it was passed along from your principal. I'm going to put the link here in the chat. And so if you're like me, it's easy to get distracted. So you might want to hold on to this link and work on it after we finish here in a minute. but I just dropped that link. And so we don't have your emails yet, but we have your principal's email. So we sent an email to the principal and said, hey, forward this to your AP, your dean, whatever, so that we can make sure we have contact information for you. And that's just a quick survey, name, school, district, that sort of thing, so that we can continue to reach out to you as opportunities come along. I'm also going to put in there, and I may hold off. I tell you what, if you can promise me you won't get distracted and take 5 minutes to read this article, I want to put a link to an article that I tweeted out yesterday. And, you know, Kyle mentioned having difficult conversations, and that is the thing that I found to be probably one of the things I was the least prepared for as an administrator. And so nobody taught me that. And I just didn't get a whole lot of help with that along the way. I mean, if I called somebody and say, hey, I'm, you know, getting ready to have a tough conversation, you have any pointers? I mean, people will tell me some things, but I just feel like that's something that it can, like Kyle said, I mean, it can really go bad. It can really turn into a mess. You know, you got to be prepared, and you got to walk in there kind of knowing what you're going to do. And so that link right there, take you to an article, click on it so you got it, but don't be reading it. Let Kelly finish her meeting here. Let's do our breakout groups. But that's some good basic information that you need to know before you go in and talk to somebody. And I'll just tell you, I always dreaded that. I just think it's natural for us to dread having those tough conversations. But your principal's more than likely going to have the most difficult conversations, but there's going to be times when you need to do that too. And in your role right now, where you're not having the most difficult conversations that go on in the school, this gives you a great opportunity to have some of those that maybe on a little less intense level and get some practice. Because when you become the principal, those are going to roll uphill, and you're going to be having those really tough conversations. So look at this article later today and just think about it, and think about an opportunity that you can practice it. I mean, there's probably something right now in your building that you could go talk to somebody about. And here's the thing, I always dread having those conversations, but every single time on the other end of it, things were better. Either that person left, that person changed, or I just got it off my chest that it was bothering me. And I began, you know, after having a conversation with them, I understood what was going on. So anyway, I just thought it was a great article. Take a minute later today and read it. It'll take you less than 5 minutes, and hopefully it'll help you.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, that is a great article. He shared it out yesterday, and so you'll definitely want to check out that article as well. And so, all right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to have some time to just really, you know, just network and talk. You know, from feedback that I've received, you all like to have an opportunity just to ask questions and talk with other assistant principals from the same area or from the same, you know, level as you are. So what our plan is going to be here is I'm going to create 3 breakout rooms. So there's going to be one that's going to be elementary, a middle, and a high. And you will actually get to choose which one you join. All right. So if you're an elementary assistant principal, then that's the one that you want to go to, middle school, high school. And then we're just going to spend some time in there. We'll start out with about 15 minutes, and I'll just check in. Dan and Kyle's going to be helping me, and one of us will be in each one of those rooms. And, you know, just kind of facilitating, but really is just going to be an opportunity for you to kind of talk about things you've heard today, ask questions if there's something you're struggling with or a challenge you're being faced with. You know, talk with these colleagues. You know, that's what these meetings are all about. How do we network, and how do we become stronger as a leader? And so many times it's just being able to make those connections with other people that are in the same positions and learning from one another. So I'm going to open those rooms, and then you'll have an opportunity to join. You know, we really do value your time. And so please add anything, you know, if there are topics that you would like us to make sure that we have speakers that cover, you know, always reach out and let me know. Because while our next meeting will be February the 17th, and I'll send out that link for you to register and all of that. you know, we can always come together at a different time if the need is there, or if there's a particular training, short training that's needed. We'll make sure to make that happen for you all. So your feedback is truly important, and we do look at that. So, you know, whatever you're in the future you think you need, anytime, just reach out and say, hey, have you thought about offering this? Or we could really use some more information on this. Please always do that. Let us know, because that's how we, you know, that's how we build our agendas for these network meetings. That's how we, you know, decide upon trainings that we offer at GREC as well. So your feedback is truly, truly valuable. Yes, Amanda, great question. In February, we hope to, yes, be back in person. All right, for this meeting. So yes, and I will send all of that out in an email, and we'll just continue to build our distribution list, get all the assistant principals across the region in here. And we just appreciate you joining us today. If you want to stay on and have some further conversations, or you just have questions for myself or Dan or Kyle, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to let you hop off. I know that you're busy and you are in your buildings today, and that makes it really hard to join virtually. And I appreciate your attention and just your thoughtfulness and being willing, you know, to share, just to share your work and your struggles and what's working well, what's not working well. And we just appreciate that. And so once you have your Google form completed, just know you'll get that certificate in your email. Make sure you check junk if you don't get it. But if you have problems with that, just reach out to me. I'll be on here, or send me an email, and we'll take care of that. And we'll see you back again on February the 17th. But if you need anything before then, please reach out, send us an email. Say, I just need some support in this, or what resources do you have? And we'll get you, we'll help you work through that. So nice to see you. Nice to meet you. I see a lot of new faces today, so I'm hoping to get to meet you in person and just continue this work. So great seeing you. Thank you so much. And we will see you soon.